Hi, welcome back to another video. And this video is about MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. So let's start from the very basic. What is MCP? Okay, so I'm gonna explain. So since like 2 years ago, LLM came into the picture, and a whole lot of people they started building their AI applications, but everyone was building their application by their own architecture. There was zero standardization, and that was a big problem. Why? Because if you have built a system, I have built a system, and now our agents, our systems, they want to talk to each other, there is a big problem. Like, you will explain to me, I will explain to me, I will change my system, you will change your system, and okay, the communication is happening. But let's say there is another agent, agent number 3, which wants to talk to agent number 1. Again, I have to do the changes because there is no standardization. So that's where MCP come into the picture to make the things standard for the AI development, particularly for how the tools should be, how the tools should communicate, and how the communication with LLM should look like. So that's about what is the MCP. The next thing is I'm going to explain three components of the MCP. What are they and what are their roles? So first one is the host, which is going to be your application, actually, which could be the LLM. And the second thing is going to be client. Client is that piece of code which is going to call the MCP servers. So MCP servers is uh, external tools which have their own logic, which will do certain things, not certain things, which will bring up some external functionality for our application. So let's say we have a server one, which is responsible for maybe communicating with DB, pushing some data to the DB, and maybe reading some data from the DB. That's our MCP server number 1. And let's say we have another server which is responsible for API communication, like how to call the API, what fields, and how to create the headers, how to read the response, and stuff like that. And then there is another server which is responsible for communicating with the underlying file system, creating files, doing writing files, reading files, and all that sort of stuff. So all this communication with the external system would be done by these servers. And all of these servers, they will expose some tool in a very standard way, and using those tools we will be able to communicate with these servers. So that's the basic three components of the MCP are. And the next thing is how the whole flow will work in terms of the functionality. So let's talk about that. So we number one thing in our flow, we have the MCP server, which is going to have the host plus client. And let's say this is going to be our application. We have a chatbot application, and this is that application. Then we have the LLM, which is going to be large language model. It could be anyone. So let's say we have that. And the third thing, we have MCP servers. So let's say once you will reboot your application, you will call the MCP server and get a list of all the tools. And now your application, your host will have a list of all the available tools. And once the customer will pass some query, you will pass that query plus tools to the LLM. LLM will know from the tool's description, like what is the purpose of this tool, and then from the query it will figure out which tool it has to call, and it will pass that tool back to the host. Host will then call that tool on the MCP server and get the response. And let's say that tool particularly is calling the DB, and it's getting the response. It's passing us the data it has written from the it has read from the DB, and it will pass that to the LLM. LLM will process it, structure it, and create the response for the query, and will return it in the chatbot. So that's how the flow is going to work. Now the important question, why that these tools, like right now if you are using LangChain or any other library, the tools and function, they are already there. Why MCP server? So MCP server is pretty much a new way of standardization for the external communication and the further tools. Like, you will expose all the available tools in a particular format, like description, how the input should be, and how the output is going to look like. And once this you will establish this MCP server, anyone can use it. Like, let's say I am the Google Map API, I'm the Google Map system, and right now everyone is creating their own tools to talk to the Google Map API. But let's say now Google Map, they create their own MCP server. They say, okay, you will call this system and we will give you all the tools available, and then you can call those tools, and that's how you can call them, and you will get the response back in this structure. So you see how much this is solving pretty much all the tools problem. Now there will be one standard way for calling all the tools, and those tools will be reusable. So that's the importance of the MCP, and that's the purpose of the MCP. And let's, in the next video, I'm gonna give you a code example for this whole flow. So stay tuned and let's have a look at the code as well. Thank you. Bye.